What's up? I'm Jacob Hager, and today I'm going to go over the differences between a cassette hub. What's up? I'm Jacob Hager, and today I'm going to go over the differences between a cassette hub and a Freecoaster hub. And then I'm also going to tell you the pros and cons of each. So we'll start with the cassette. This is a cassette. This is a female cassette, so it doesn't have the bolts. I'm actually using the bolts in another hub. Your standard hub with your driver that stays engaged. This clicking is springs inside pushing pawls against the wall of this hub, and it's basically grabbing onto little teeth, which causes the hub to spin. When you backpedal, it's disengaged, so you can backpedal freely, and then when you pedal forward, it's fully engaged. When I'm holding onto the driver of this one, this hub will spin forward. That's as if you're rolling forward. When you're rolling backwards, it's always engaged, so you can see that this driver moves with the hub when it goes backwards. A Freecoaster, on the other hand, when the hub spins forward, same thing, it goes forward, but when it's disengaged, this hub can spin freely backwards as well. There's no noise here because there's no pawls in this hub, which kind of opens you up to a whole different book of tricks. So why would you get one over the other, and which one's better? There's not really one better than the other. They both serve different purposes. So I'll go over a few pros and cons of each, and then we'll kind of explain why you might want one or the other. So basically, the main difference is with this hub, as soon as you go to crank, it's always there. This one will have a little bit of slack, so you'll have to pedal a little bit before it actually engages. When you're rolling backwards, this will force your cranks to go backwards, so you have to backpedal when you're faking on this. Whereas this disengages that, so your feet can stay in the same spot as you're rolling backwards. Cons of a cassette. Obvious one is when you're going backwards, you have to backpedal. That may not be a con for everybody, but for me, that would be a con for this. Also, they're kind of annoying. I find it kind of annoying. I don't really like the sound of them. Other than that, there's not really many cons to a cassette hub. Pros to the cassette hub. One pro is the obvious, that it's always engaged. You can take a crank at something. If you're in a manual and it's going to fall down, you can crank to keep yourself up. You can crank to jump into stuff. That's always something that's beneficial with a cassette hub. Another pro is that they're super easy to service and maintain. It's just an easy system. There's not a lot to it. Most of them come with cheap replacement parts, and they don't break that easy. It's just a super simple system. There are more complex ones, but your basic spring and pawl system is very easy. Another pro to these is they're light. They're lighter than a Freecoaster hub, just because there's less going on inside of it. All the internals are in this portion of the hub right here, whereas a Freecoaster, the whole inside of the hub is the mechanism. But yeah, so you'll see a lot of park riders on these just because most of their tricks aren't going backwards, so they don't necessarily need the Freecoaster, and these are a lot lighter. And then for like tire taps and stuff like that, these are going to be a lot easier. If you like the noise to it, that could be a pro. If you gauge your speed based off of what your cassette sounds like, that could be beneficial to you. Another pro to the cassette is they are fairly inexpensive. You can find ones that'll work for what you need for close to $100, if not less, if you find one on sale. So these are pretty inexpensive for the most part. So let's talk about the pros and cons of a Freecoaster hub. So we'll start with the cons. One of the cons is these are definitely heavier. Most of your Freecoasters, like your Odyssey Clutch, your like Primo Freecoasters, all of your street brand Freecoasters, your Demolition Freecoasters, those are all going to have a clutch system which fills up the entirety of this hub with steel components inside there. So they are definitely heavier. So another con with the Freecoaster is that they break a lot easier than cassettes. There's more moving components in there, and with this having as much slack as it does, you're constantly smacking the inside of that hub. It's never just engaged and ready to go. You're constantly smashing that in to engage it because there's so much play. Another con is that they're not super easy to repair. Most of the time the components inside wear out and you have to replace them. Replacement parts aren't super expensive, but they also aren't super cheap. Another con to the Freecoaster hub is that they are fairly expensive for a decent Freecoaster. if you get a cheap one, you get what you pay for with this kind of stuff. So comparing the prices of like a company's Cassette versus that same company's Freecoaster, the Freecoaster is going to cost more. Another con to the Freecoaster hub is that you can't really tire tap without like balancing. You can't use pedal pressure. You can't use pedal pressure to hop into things. So that's one thing you lose when you go to a Freecoaster. Now, pros to the Freecoaster is the obvious one. You don't have to backpedal when faking, which allows for a lot more tricks. It allows for new, different style of riding. And really, there isn't much more pros to the Freecoaster other than you can go backwards without backpedaling. There's not much more to it. It opens up a lot more tricks, but that's really the only pro when you compare this to the Cassette hub. So, who is a Cassette for and who is a Freecoaster for? I would say a Cassette is definitely for your park rider or your street rider that likes doing tap tricks where like you can crank, where you're balancing and doing stuff out of manuals. I know a lot of guys stick to the roots, and this is what you start on. This is what they're on now. Who is a Freecoaster for? Freecoaster's for somebody that wants a little bit easier fakie tricks. You don't have to backpedal all the way to the, all the way to whatever. You can do fakie tricks on whatnot and half cabbing out. It's just super easy on one of these because your feet are always where they need to be to hop out or to do a trick. Whereas a Cassette, you have to adjust your feet on fakies. So this is for your guy who is probably a street rider for the most part. I ride a Freecoaster and I'm a park rider, so we definitely use them. But this is more for your street rider who's going to be doing a lot of backwards stuff, a lot of fakie tricks, a lot of cab tricks. And this is going to be closer. This is going to be more oriented towards your park rider that like wants to do tech tricks, that wants to have that pedal pressure, that instant engagement, and doesn't necessarily need to go backwards. Now, with that being said, if you are just starting out and you're trying to buy your first stock bike and you don't know if you want that stock bike to have a Cassette or a Freecoaster, I highly recommend starting on a Cassette. It'll be a lot easier to control your bike on this. You won't slip up as much. You won't have to worry about the slack. You will learn balancing a lot easier. You can crank out of stuff, which will keep you safer when you're like not going to make it off the end of the picnic table and you got to take a little crank to lift up. It's going to teach you balance a lot better when you're going backwards because you have to backpedal and you have to constantly keep yourself balanced. Whereas the other hub, you don't have to focus on backpedaling and balancing. So I would definitely say if you're just starting out, start on a Cassette, get good on a Cassette, and then when you get better and you want to start learning new fakie tricks, then transition to the Freecoaster. So I'd like to take a quick break to thank my sponsors. All right. And yeah, if you haven't seen the website scrolling behind me, this is thehagerco.com. Go get yourself some merch, support your boy. And then there is the third type of hub, which is the hub that I'm on right now. It's Profile Z Coaster. They also make the Madeira Golf Coaster. And those hubs are basically the best of both. So it is a Cassette until you backpedal and disengage it, and it's a Freecoaster. So you can get the pedal pressure from it. You can get the instant engagement, and as soon as you want to turn it into a Cassette, you backpedal. Cons of those is they're really expensive. They're very expensive hubs. Most people don't have $400 plus to buy a hub when you could get a Cassette for close to $100 or a Freecoaster for closer to $200. So it's like double the price, if not more, than a regular hub. Their weights are kind of in between, so that's not really a pro or a con, depending on how you look at it. And then pros, obviously, you get the best of both. You can backpedal to turn it into a coaster, or you can stay engaged and ride it as a Cassette. So it's really the best of both, but it does come at a cost. So hopefully this video helps you out, helps you decide which hub is right for you. If I'm starting out, I would say go on a Cassette. If you want to dabble in and you're not sure if you want a Freecoaster, I would just do it. If you're already an intermediate rider and you're just looking to add more tricks to your book, the Freecoaster is definitely a way to do it. You're going to sacrifice a little bit of your weight because it is going to weigh a little bit more, but not that much if you're just changing out the hub. It does make the back end a little bit heavier, but I wouldn't worry about that. If it's something that you want to ride, go ahead and do it. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like I said, visit the website, check it out. Link will be in the description. Go follow me on Instagram on the screen or in the description below. And yeah, if you have any other ideas on like a versus video that I should make or any other video at all, let me know and subscribe so you don't miss out. We'll see you next time.